Welcome to the 7-8 podcast,
where falling down isn't failure
and getting back up is the secret to life.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Lexi and Michael Johnson back for another episode of the 7-8 podcast. Today, we are going to be having a conversation about something that me specifically, have been thinking a lot about, and in full transparency, I guess, struggling with a little bit. And I feel like this is going to be the perfect setting for us to talk about it and to maybe help you as well, because I feel like there could be other people that maybe have some of these thoughts and these feelings. So today is a little bit of a different episode. Usually we tell 7-8 stories about other people, and we've told stories about Walt Disney, we've told stories about Colonel Sanders, we've told the story of Nike and Phil Knight, and today we are just going to be having a conversation about something I guess that I'm experiencing, and I think it will be good. So we're talking about contrast. We'll dig into it a little bit more, but before we do, Michael,
we got a quick word from our sponsor, Business Choreography. Let's hear it. This episode is brought to you by the Business Choreography System. If there's a business inside of you, a vision, a voice, a calling, but you've been holding back because you don't know where to start, this is your sign. You don't need to figure it out alone. You don't need to guess your way through the tech, the marketing, the strategy. The Business Choreography System is the step-by-step framework that helps you turn your expertise into a business with clarity, support, and structure. Whether you're just dreaming or finally ready to build, we'll show you exactly how to bring it to life. Watch the free masterclass at createmyimpact.com, because the truth is your dream isn't too big. You just need the right choreography to bring it to life.
All righty.
Rock and roll. I'm excited
to
be here and have this conversation. As Lexi said, this is one of the different types of episodes that we will be bringing you as we move forward. And we are not one-trick ponies. And so we want to make sure that the show continues to have some different elements and some different approaches to it. As Lexi said, I did a solo episode last time. You guys should go check it out and see if you like it, and let us know. I've got thick skin, but be nice, because there's not a good reason to be mean. The world doesn't need more mean. But if you have some suggestions and or thoughts, then that's great. We'd love to hear them. But I think you'll really enjoy that last episode. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. And today we're going to have a bit of a philosophical discussion and a little bit of talking about the mindset behind things. So let's get some premise here, Lexi, so that they understand the type of contrast that we're talking about, and then we'll dig in.
Right. So, I think it's for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel this way, like some days in life are really, really great, and some days are not so great. And even through and I feel like specifically, like my routine is the same on both of those days, right? My routine is the same, and one day is really, really great, and one day is really bad, and nothing really changed. And so something that I really have been thinking about and processing is this idea of contrast. And when you look at the world, there is natural contrast in everything, right? So there is light and there is dark, there is daytime and there is nighttime, there is happiness and there is sadness, right? And all of these things exist in the world, and I think what I have been trying to navigate is specifically the emotions and the contrast that are in emotions, and whether you should go full swing and lean into those feelings that you have, or if you should be staying steady in those moments. And so this is kind of the conversation that I I want to present and I want to have, and that I feel like is going to be a great conversation for 7-8 in the
Indeed.
7-8 podcast.
Yeah. I mean, 7-8 is a lot about contrast, right? It's about the falling down element, but it's
Right.
also about the rise. And on either end, uh, the rise is possible because of the fall, and the fall is possible because of the rise. And
Yeah.
that's such an interesting scenario. It's also quite frustrating for a lot of you. I know for me, it's certainly frustrating. I remember as a young man, uh, teenager, I was competing in a competition, a dance competition. As you guys know, we're former professional ballroom dancers,
Yep.
but at the time I wasn't professional, and I was competing, and uh, I didn't know any better. The first comp I went out to, I won, and it was out of a lot of people, and I won,
I've never heard this story.
and really,
Yeah, I don't know this story.
in my little hometown where I was from, I was the king of the hill, right? Just as a teenager, and I was very naturally gifted and talented, and I could say I put a lot of work into it, but the truth is that it was mostly all fun. It was just fun to do. And in my little pond, in my little fish pond, I was the king of the hill. And then we went to this national competition. It was the first major competition that I did. And I danced with a partner that was, because there just weren't any people my age in my town. So I danced with a partner that we had a long distance partnership, which what did I
Oh.
I was I was a kid, I was what, 14 or 15, something like that. And I just was like, okay, I guess that's just what you have to do. So we did what was necessary. We showed up at this national comp. It was a US comp, and there were so many couples my age that I was dancing against. At my age, a little bit older than me, a little bit younger. And I thought, I just was naive. And so I just was like, oh, I'm going to win. And I went out and won. And talk about being at the top of the hill, was like, holy cow. And I assumed I would win. And then I did. And then it was like, oh my gosh. So then the next year I went back, different partner. And of course, I thought I was going to win.
Well, of course.
And I went out and there were a ton of people to dance against. And I was the one to beat. And again, I won again.
My gosh.
And I was like, I am the man. Like, what was that? Right. And then I came back a couple years later because I didn't have a partner in between that. Came back a couple years later as an adult in the adult division. And of
Mhm.
course, I was like, there were a lot of people. I'm going to win. That's
Right.
just what's going to happen. I'm going to win.
That's what you do.
What I do. And and I did worse than not win. I was like the bottom of the heap.
Oh, man.
And talk about getting to the other side of the coin. Talk about the fall, right? Because here I
Right.
was, the man, the one, right? And I came back to win, and I stacked the deck in my favor to win that year too. I was dancing with a woman that was a versed swing dancer. She was amazing, and I probably, at the time had no business dancing with her because
Right.
she was the top of the heap. And, and also had the belief that we were going to win. And so
Right.
I think we outbelieved ourselves. And I wonder if I put the time in preparation. In hindsight, I look back and I don't know that I respected it as much. I don't know that we quite put in the time and the effort. That's hindsight. Hindsight is
Right.
2020. And we went back and I think we ended up, 10 out of 15 that year, and it was a massive blow, not only to me but to her and to her reputation and her family and just like a number of things. And man, that set me back for a lot of years. It really did.
Right.
And it took some time to get back up from that fall, because it really did a number on me after having such massive success in the beginning, and then getting that contrast of being so on the opposite end of the coin. uh,
Right.
it was, I can't say devastating, because I still moved on and I did other things, but I think it was probably a very integral part of my journey, you know?
Is having well, I guess that brings up an interesting point, like, do so the fall is necessary? Like, is that I think that's where I want to dig into that, because maybe it's not that it's necessary, it's just it's inevitable, and, like, the contrast in the world is it is what it is, and now it's understanding how you're going to navigate that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of look at it this way. Right now, wherever you're at, if you're driving, be careful. But just take your hand and hold your pointer finger up and look at your pointer finger. And for me, I see better up close. So I have to actually like remove my glasses and then look really up close. And there's a bunch of little circles and of lines there. And those are your fingerprint. And as you look at your fingerprint right now, yours has this very unique um, pattern. And
Right.
with that pattern, there might be scars over it. Maybe you cut your finger, maybe you didn't, maybe, whatever. Your fingerprint is 100% unique to you.
Right.
And it depends on how you grew up. It depends whether you cut your finger with a saw. You know, my grandfather
Right.
my grandfather cut his thumb in half with a circular saw. It
Oh
was
my
a fun day.
gosh.
Not really, it was disgusting.
That is
Um,
so gross.
and so we each have this fingerprint. And I think that your existence also has a unique fingerprint.
Mm,
And that fingerprint is uh, created and developed and determined by the things you experience in your life. And I think that we as humans love to create the plus and the minus, the good and the bad. And so on our fingerprint, on that fingerprint of our life experience, we are assigning meaning to it of good and bad. And
right.
that's so dangerous. Right? It's so dangerous, because how many times have you heard that statement like time heals? Well, time heals because, in like I said, in hindsight and looking back, hindsight's 2020. I probably should have practiced some more. I
Hmm.
don't know that I practiced at all.
Right.
But it's hard to know, because I didn't practice like I now know how to practice after having been a professional ballroom dancer. I
Right.
look back at that time and I didn't do anything like what I did to practice as a professional. And so maybe in that moment, that was a little bit of a wake up call. And maybe that was what allowed me to then go on and figure out what it would take to be a professional and to
Mm,
dance professionally. And maybe that gave me some of the thick skin that I needed to enter the professional world, and for my first couple of years not make a cut and suck really, really bad. And I had some
right.
thick skin that I built up from that. And again, I'm looking at it from hindsight, but without that fingerprint of that life experience, would I have just quit and gone on and been like a dentist? Not saying that being a dentist is bad. I'm just saying, would that experience, okay, well, then would you say that experience was bad? Well, no, I would say that was, if I ended up being a dentist, that would have been the thing. Maybe that thing was like, hey, dude, that's not for you. You should be a dentist. Right. And so then maybe my thing would have been, hey, that was the experience that led me to being a dentist instead of
Right.
a professional dancer. But I think it doesn't matter. I think the point of the matter is that what's beautiful is the fingerprint. What's beautiful is the life experience fingerprint that is 1 billion times unique to you. People out there listening to us right now might have the same experience as me or as you in one case or one scenario, but they might not, at what they 100% do not have my exact fingerprint of my life experience.
Right. So, um, so do you think that is why there is contrast?
I think that contrast is more than necessary. I think it's what
More than necessary?
more than necessary. I think it's what writes our story. I
The
think,
contrast does?
yeah, I think we live for that contrast. That's pretty bold, I guess.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. Like we live for the contrast. So then if we're living for the contrast, then are we creating those falls? Are we creating those negative experiences because we are living for that contrast and we've been trained in the world to have the daytime and the nighttime and so now everything's good and so we make it so something's bad because we need the contrast? Does that make
I
sense?
yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. I think that really has some philosophical roots to the ideas of whether outside forces can control you
Fair.
or
Yeah.
whether you can control you. Uh,
Right.
I think there's some connections to free will, and we're not going to get into that now, but I know there are lots of people out there that don't believe that we have free will. I know there are lots of people out there that do believe we have free will. I
Right.
believe that uh the intention, I think, of our conversation is really to talk about the idea of whether we should have that or whether we are creating it. Well, I would like to believe that we are creating everything. That comes with a whole lot of heaviness
Yeah,
because
there's a lot of there's a lot of weight to that when
uh,
you know that you're creating everything, but I think there's also a lot of freedom.
there is. I think it comes with both ends of the stick,
Right.
and it has to, because you can't have a stick without both ends. There's no stick,
Right.
and you can't have a coin with only one side, and you can't have the daytime without the dark.
Right.
I think that's the nature of it, right? I think there's a lot of connections to that, but I do like, personally, like the idea that I'm creating my world. I'm creating the direction that I'm going. I'm
Right.
creating the choices I make. I could choose randomly to do things that I'm doing. There are a lot of scientific physics types minds and the free will, the side of things that say we don't have free will. We're only making decisions based off of our past and what our ancestors and our family have taught us to do. Except for, what about all the people that have changed? And they'll say, well, they changed because their parents taught them opposite, and so they did the opposite. Yeah, but what about the ones that didn't do the opposite and did the same? Like it could go both ways. And so I
Right.
feel like there's a really highly philosophical discussion there that probably we can't come to a definitive end on. But I like this metaphor, and we're going to show a clip in just a minute about this. But I love this metaphor of surfing. I don't surf, but
I don't surf either. I
but
want
I
to.
have discussed and talked with a lot of people that are surfers, and they have an interesting look in their eyes. If you're a surfer, you can comment below wherever you're watching or listening to this. But if you're a surfer, like when I talk to surfers and I start talking to them about surfing, they get this look in their eyes, and it is unmistakable. Dancers get it, musicians get it, artists get it. Usually,
I think
usually
people who are passionate
passionate
about
about the
something.
thing, right? They
Yeah.
get this look, this it's not a glaze over, but maybe a glaze uh, under. I don't know what to
Glaze
call it.
under.
A glaze under. It's not a glaze over because they don't like disappear, but they kind of do disappear in their passion. And they live for the wave, man. They cannot get out enough. They can't be on their board in the ocean enough,
Right.
seeking that wave. And it's not just any wave, although they will take any wave. It's seeking that best wave. It's seeking the best ride on that best wave. It's being in there and getting out of a wave that just absolutely owned them. And then they get back up and get to a wave that they absolutely owned. And it's interesting thing because I love the metaphor, even though I'm not a surfer, and even though I would not really like to spend time in the ocean. That's not me. But um, it's not really my jam. I hate sand. Um, um, but
Oh
but
gosh.
that's another topic for another day. But
No
the
topic.
interesting thing is that if you're a surfer, the funny part is you're riding a wave to the beach. But the last thing you want to do is arrive at the beach. The last thing they want to do is get out and get onto the beach again. The only thing they want to do is be on another wave
So they want to stay
in the cycle.
in the cycle.
They want to ride the wave and they want to be done with the wave so that they can
Ride
talk
the wave
about.
again?
Well, no, you got to, the in between part is huge. So they can talk
Okay.
about the wave that they just rode or rode them. Because that happens, I think, a lot, right?
Right.
And then they want to go do it again so that they can experience being there in the moment,
Hmm.
being present, and riding that beach. But the point of riding that wave to the beach, but the point isn't getting to the beach. And I think that it is so easy for us as just regular old humans, like all of us are. It's so easy for us to just feel like we're riding the wave to get to the beach and forgetting that we're riding the wave to ride the wave.
Hmm.
The beach is where we have to go to be done until the next time we can get out and ride the wave. And I feel like there's so many times when life is just like that to us. We're out, we're in the ocean, we're getting beat to hell by a
Right.
wave. And maybe it's the next wave, and maybe you try again and it's the next wave. But it just keeps beating you to a pulp. And you think, I should just go back to shore and be done. And then there's that one more way you're like, no, you know what? Let me try that one more time. And then you get the best ride of your life. And then when you have to go in to the shore, then you tell all your buddies about the wave you rode for the next 20 years. And the experience of, man, it was a horrible day. I couldn't get a wave. And then right before I was about to give up, I rode that wave. And man, that was amazing. I love that analogy, and I think it's a good segue. Let's do you want to do that clip now?
Yeah, just the audio, right?
Yeah, let's just do the audio. We'll give some kudos and shout outs
I'll
to
I'll
the okay, go ahead.
I'll tell what it is. So there's this Instagram channel, I don't know if you've seen it. It's called It's Lenny, and it's this blob, and there's just
Cutest little
a
blob.
what, Michael?
It's the cutest little blob.
It is the cutest little blob, and it's just all about your emotions, and, um it's very cute. It's very cute and very motivating, and they just have so many different clips of talking about different things that are happening and the different emotions that you're feeling. And this specific one has been one of our favorites since we have seen it and we have used it. We've shared it with lots of people, and we want to share it with you today because it's good. It explains this concept really well. So, uh, let me play it.
And to remind you that it's all a wave, baby. 1 second you're on top of the entire freaking ocean, feeling invincible, and then bam, you're face first into rock bottom. But you know what's dope about the scientific makeup of the human body? You float. You float, and you float, and you float back up to the surface. And then you wait. And eventually, sometimes even right when you're about to give up, the biggest, most beautiful wave comes and puts you back on top. And that's life, baby. Waves. I love you so much. You got this. Bye.
Waves.
Waves. I love it. It's Lenny. You can find him at Lenny at it's Lenny on Instagram. Go check him out. Give him a shout out.
Yeah.
Tell him 7-8 sent you because that's so important. Their channel's so cool and they're doing some cool things and we didn't, we don't know them. So, but it's just a shout out because I think they're cool and there's some really cute messages on their channel. And
Yeah.
I think it's perfect, right? And that's it. Sometimes a wave picks you up and you're on top of the world. Next thing you know, you're rock bottom. I mean, that's said perfectly. And I know you guys have felt that. And I know that you guys have seen that contrast. You were talking a little bit about some of the research because you do research on all of the things that we discuss. But you were
Yeah.
reading something about stoicism there. I want you to read that little piece, that little excerpt that you had read to me earlier.
Yeah. I just used my good friend Chat. My dad, he calls Chat GPT. I was talking with Chat today. All right.
His buddy,
his buddy Chat.
all of our new buddy.
Right. Um, and so, just in preparation for this episode, I was just kind of having a conversation about these ideas, and I feel like it uh, brought some cool things out. And this specifically came from I asked, what did I ask? Um, So the highs and lows are just inevitable. Now it's our job to figure out how to stay steady in the midst of this, or should we go with the highs and go with the lows to be present in that moment? That was the question that I asked, and I think really the premise of this whole show that's really where all of this started is this idea coming into my head of what is the right thing. And if you're not watching, I just did air quotes because right, wrong, I don't know. But what is the right thing to do? Should you stay steady in the midst of the highs and lows with your emotions, or should you go with them? And so I like what it said. And it said, this is the heart of the tension, isn't it? Once we accept that contrast is part of being human, do we resist it? Do we regulate it? Or do we ride it? Let's explore both paths, not to choose a side, but to help you shape your own philosophy and maybe even the arc. Sorry, it was helping me with the episode. So it said maybe in the arc, even the arc of your episode. Path one, stay steady through the storm. This is the path of mindfulness, stoicism, and even certain spiritual teachings. You notice your emotions, but don't become them. You let the highs rise without attracting your identity to them. You let the lows pass without falling into despair. The benefit of this path is emotional sustainability. You don't burn out chasing euphoria. You don't spiral when things dip. You develop resilience, calm, and consistency. This is the anchor approach, building your inner compass so you can navigate whatever weather shows up. But path 2, ride the waves fully. The goal is not control, it's presence. If joy comes, dance. If sorrow comes, weep. This is the path of artists, mystics, and lovers of life. You don't flatten the experience, you immerse yourself into it. You let the contrast be your color palette. You embrace the emotion because it means you're alive. The benefit of this path is depth of experience. You feel the fullness of life. You connect with others through your emotional honesty. You access beauty, vulnerability, and meaning. This is the surrender approach, being fully in the moment, even when it's messy. So, which is it? Stay steady or ride the waves?
I think it's a great question. I want to hear from you guys. Which is it for you? Stay steady, ride the waves? Are you looking at, do you live your life in a more stoic, using stoicism as your compass? Or do you use the other side of it and say, I'm just going to go up and down and blast whatever side I'm on? I
Yeah.
love, I think one of the things for what I've learned through this and through talking about it with you and bringing up and having this conversation is that in both of those sides, did you notice that it talked about presence? It's about, they both talked about being present. The stoicism side and
Sure.
remaining not too high on the highs, not too low on the lows, but using and having a compass about being in the moment and not allowing either of those to take you over. That's about being present. On the other side, it's talked about, going with the emotion, living with the happiness and the great joy or the great sorrow, and really just experiencing it, but it's still about being present.
Present.
And sorry to get cheesy, but to quote Kung Fu Panda,
Kung Fu Panda.
yeah,
Yes.
it's the present. That's why they call it a gift.
Right.
And that's not the real exact quote, but you guys, if you've seen Kung Fu Panda, then you can, what I'm talking about. If you haven't, it's a cute little cartoon and you probably should see it. So, but the idea is simple, right? It's about being present. And I think, I wrote a whole book called Every Minute about it.
Sure.
And Lexi was one of the editors. So, I think we can all value or find value in that every minute moment, which is that edge of the surf or of the wave for a surfer. It's
Right.
it's not in the past. It's not quite at the beach. It's not even off the board. It's in that moment. You're so present and so there, and how you're going to handle yourself in that moment, how you're going to handle your presence. I like that. Your gift, right?
That's a really cool way to put it.
How you're going to handle your presence in those moments, I think is up to you. And I think everybody chooses differently. And I think that's okay. I think that's what makes it beautiful. I think that's what's made some of the saddest songs you've ever heard. I think it's what's made some of the most romantic moments you've ever had. I think it's what has created some of the most joyful experiences you've been lucky enough to be in position for. And those are our presents. Those are where we are present. Those are where the gifts are in the sweet spot, in those special moments on the edge of the wave that you wish wouldn't go away and that you wish would be over as soon as humanly possible, because they were so much sorrow and so much despair, and it didn't feel like you were riding a wave. It felt like you were getting punched in the face, and you wanted it to end until 20 years later when you're telling your grandkids the story of how you were punched in the face, and they are all giggling and laughing and sitting around your lap going, hey, that is the cool story. Dad, tell us that story again. And I've had that experience with one of my kids. I tell my stories like any dad. And the other day I was like, I asked my third child, my Jaina, I asked her, I said, hey, is it all right if I tell this story and use one of your pictures to tell this story? She goes, which story? I said, well, this one about me run on a runaway horse. And she goes, oh, I love that story. That's the best story. And I'm like, I thought she had overheard it and didn't want to hear me say it one more time. I love that story. Yes, absolutely. Tell everybody that. But that story in the moment, I just wanted it to be over. Now I look back on it fondly. The good old days with my buddy riding through the forest of New Jersey. The good old days, right? But at the time, I just wanted to be over. You know what I'm talking about.
So, from my perspective, and what I have, this started with me coming um, with questions and trying to figure this out and trying to understand this idea of contrast and trying to understand how to handle it and whether I should try to be stoic through those situations or if I should go, I guess, get really low and get really high. Like, what is the best thing? And I think what I have learned and what I have taken from just us talking about it, what you have said, what um, me and Chat had a conversation about, is that it's not really about that. It's actually about being present in the moment, no matter what is happening. You're just present. Is that
I mean,
how?
that sounds beautiful. As you said that, my first thought was live the gift, be the gift,
Mm,
right? You want to be present.
even if it isn't like now my you know me, I'm like second guessing it, right? So even if it's a sad moment, like you still want to be present in that, like, or do you want to try to get away from that?
I think that if you want evidence of that, you have to look towards some of the greats of our past to find that evidence of even in the worst moments. So let's take a book like the Meaning of, now I just,
Um,
it's by Viktor Frankl.
Man's search. What is? I think it's Man's Search for Meaning, but
Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah, I think that's,
let me look it up because that's a great book.
yeah, Viktor Frankl. He was in the concentration camps.
Yeah. Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning. And I mean, one of the huge lessons from him in one of the worst situations ever was to be present. And it wasn't that he wasn't sad. Sad was a part of it. It was that he was present in the sadness. It wasn't, I also think there's value in not over exaggerating any of it, whether it's the joy part or the sad or the sorrow part. And I think that's where I lean a little bit towards the stoicism side of things, is just, I
Yeah.
feel like I do see people try to say, oh, I'm riding the wave and I'm just going to go full in on that emotion. And I think there's some value to not over exaggerating the emotion.
Yeah. I think this is where Michael and I butt heads just a little bit.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Because that is definitely your typical approach, is to stay very, very steady and very stoic in situations. I'm a little bit more on the side where um, I'll feel it a bit more and go with it. Um, Whether that's right or wrong, I do feel like that's kind of my natural, but maybe because I hang out with you, like, I want to be more stoic, and so I maybe in those moments, I get a little bit upset with myself because I am allowing that, and maybe that is the problem. Maybe that in itself is the problem, is that I'm I am angry for doing something instead of just being present and allowing it to be what it is.
Hmm.
Does
That's
that
interesting.
does that make sense? I mean, it doesn't have to make sense.
I think it does. Yeah, no, I just, I just letting it stir in my head for a second as you
Right.
as you say that. And I think for a lot of people, they're searching for the right way to do it. We made it black and white, and from what you learned from your research there, and
Right.
we made it black and white and said, okay, there's the stoicism side and there's the full spectrum side. And
There's probably, like, 10,000
to,
ways in between that.
right, but that's so black and white, and
That's true.
why not have both? And I think isn't the experience that we're having about navigating those waters, right? Figuring out
Yeah.
the times when to and when not to. It's just how it is. You finally learn and gain the ability to keep your mouth shut, right? I don't know if anybody's had this experience, but you finally learn and you go, okay, I've mastered this. I know how to keep my mouth shut when I shouldn't say anything. And then a scenario comes up where you're like, I got this. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And you keep your mouth shut and you don't say anything. And then the whole world explodes around you because you were supposed to say something, because it was worse that
That's
you
true.
didn't say something and you had learned to keep your mouth shut. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then what do we all say? I just can't win. I just can't win.
Yeah.
It
I
took
think
me
you see that
years
on
to master this.
Right. I think you see that on social media a lot, where people are they're like people expect them because they're an influencer, or they want to know their opinion, and so there's this expectation that they should put out some statement about something happening in the world, and so they do, and then people come back and hate on it or love on it, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, what do
Right.
you want?"
Which side is correct? And I guess the answer is neither.
Yeah. I think it's interesting.
Wow.
Well,
I had this thought.
okay.
Maybe we'll end with this
Okay,
if
what's
you
that?
don't have any response
No,
after.
unless you say something and I think of something.
The gift is the present. Being present is the gift. And if we're being present, we are the gift.
Okay, the gift is the present. Say the next part again.
Being present is the gift.
Okay. Next. Oh, Michael's processing. If you are Michael's processing, he's got his hand. He's
The
playing with the beard.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. The gift is the present. Being present is the gift. And We are the gift.
I got to process. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that's a great place to conclude.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. A little different type of episode. We'd love to hear your comments and thoughts. We talked about a lot of fun things and interesting ideas. Feel free to share below some of your experiences with this topic and this concept. Yeah. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for all the support and kind words. We're getting a lot of feedback from a lot of you. We usually do this at the beginning. I forgot, actually.
Yeah, I forgot too. Whoops.
Someone said, I'm a big fan already. I heard George Foreman's stories of falling down, how he went to 10 years of missionary work and then became a world champion again. He said, a true champion gets back up no matter how many times you're knocked down. I love that. Thanks for that, guys. We'll keep sharing some of those along the way. And
yeah, we usually share one bad too. And I think somebody said that we interrupt and we talk over each other sometimes. I'm sorry if it bothers you. We are in different locations, so there is a chance that it is I wonder if there's a little bit of an internet thing, like we don't always hear each other. But I'm sorry. We'll probably keep doing what we're doing. So if you don't like it, probably just don't listen to us.
There's that.
I mean, we can try to work on it, but we are who we are.
Indeed. All right, guys. Until next time, keep getting back up. Indeed. 8. See you in the next episode.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of 7-8, where rising isn't optional, it's who we are. If you're walking through the fire right now, or if you've already come out the other side, we want to hear your story. Head over to 78.life. That's SEVEN 8.life. And tell us what you've been through, how you got back up, and what you've learned along the way. Your voice could be the one someone else needs to hear right now. And while you're there, suit up. The 7-8 gear isn't just clothing, it's armor for the battle, a symbol of what you've been through and the fact that you're still here. Wear it, own it, rock it. And until next time, keep getting back up. 8.